Hey everybody, welcome back to Dave's Open Range. Today we're back in the bike shop again, as you can see, and we're going to talk about a tubeless flat that I had. So tubelessness is a relatively modern thing, and I have 3 bikes that are running tubeless, so there's no tube in there. There's a special tape around the rim. There's some fluid in there to seal up a puncture if you get a puncture. So the other day I'm at work and I take a break at lunch and I walk outside to check on, to get some air, and I notice I got a flat on my Trek Crockett. It's a cyclocross bike. Foul weather deal, so this is the rear, and shouldn't get a flat on tubeless. I've never had a flat with a tubeless setup. So I do carry a tube, just in case I do get a flat. You can, of course, put a tube in there, even though it's tubeless. You just have to take the valve stem out and replace it with an actual tube. So in so doing, though, I noticed that I did not have a puncture. The rim tape had failed because I think I had too much PSI for that particular tape. I was running 70 PSI or so. These are 700C by 35 millimeter tires, so they're not huge, but they're a little bit oversized. And I'll show you when I take the tire off, but the rim tape with the pressure, I think I have been tubeless on this wheel for maybe 6 months, and was running high pressure one day, and the high pressure had depressed the rim tape down into the spoke holes, where the nipple is on the end of the spoke, and eventually one of those gave way and the air went right through the tape, through the rim, and hence the flat. So I'll show you that here in a minute. And I've got some heavier duty tape that I just didn't use. I was trying to use up a different roll, and so I'll use the heavier duty tape this time, and problem solved, I'm pretty sure. So let me get that apart and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so no need to show you all the nitty-gritty of taking a tire and a tube off. Y'all know how to do that. I just got the bead started, but let me just take the whole rig off. You can squeeze usually pull the tire and the tube right off. Like I said, this is a tubeless setup, but I did have a tube on me that day in case something like that happened. And I'll reuse that tube. So you can see that's the valve hole, of course, but in each spot where there's a spoke, there's a depression where the tape had covered the spoke hole where the nipple is, and this, I believe, this hole right here, you can see there's a hole right through the tape. Like I said, I think the too much PSI in the tire, 70-ish, for those particular tires is a little bit high, not too high, but a little high, and this orange tape is a little on the thin side. So you can see every one of these nipple holes where the spoke nipple catches to attach to the spoke. At every one of those, the tape is depressed into that hole. The air pressure was just pushing the tape right in, and eventually gave way. So it was not a puncture flat, but lesson learned. Heavier duty tape for this application. I have this very same tape in one of my mountain bikes with not a fat tire, but a 29er with 2.2 inch tires or so. So the pressure is way less. It's probably 30 to 40 PSI in those tires. So it's double in these tires, and that just gave way. So I will redo this one. I'm going to take that tape off and put the heavier duty tape back on, and fluid in, tire on, should be going. I'll show you a little bit of that as we go as well. So I'm going to shut off for now and take this tape off. It's just, you know how that goes, standard tape that goes into the rim to seal off where all the spokes are. And this is a specialized tape for tubeless setup, so it is extra sticky. So it just comes off like so. See, it's almost like a Mylar, and this is fine tape, but for this particular, I think for a tire with higher PSI like that, you need a heavier duty tape, and I do have some. So once I get that on there, it'll be good to go. All right, I'll leave you for now, and we'll get the new tape in there, and I'll pick you up when we get the final setup. I'm going to redo the front tire as well because it has the same setup, so it's a matter of time until it fails as well. All right, we're back. I've been making videos in real time, but I needed to shut that off and get this tape on. It took me maybe 20-30 minutes to do both wheels, so that's new tape on there. This is happens to be Stan's tape. I don't happen to remember what that other orange stuff was, but it was thinner. So this is the Stan's brand, and it's quite a bit thicker and almost like duct tape or so. So that's a single layer all the way around with a little overlap at the valve hole. So I'm going to take just a pocket knife and make a cut in the valve hole so I can get the new, or not the new, but the valve stem through the hole. So this is a tubeless valve stem, kind of like the stem just with no tube on it. It's got a rubber base on there that pulls itself down into the hole a little bit. So I'm going to just poke it through, stick it through that cut I made with my knife, and just stick it, push it down in the hole as firmly as I can. And what's key is the little nut that pulls that stem down in the hole a little bit. So I'm just going to tighten that up firmly, finger tight, pushing down on the valve stem as I go. Not sure you're supposed to tool tighten it, but I do like to just put a pair of pliers on there and pull it down in the hole just a little bit, maybe a half a turn, just to make sure that the rubber on the end of the stem is pulled down tight in the hole. All right, so on goes the tire. Let's see if we can do this in real time. You've put tires on, so no big deal there, but tires are rotational. Just a quick note that the rim itself is tubeless ready rim, and the tire is tubeless ready tire. It's not just any old tire. So I'm going to get one side of the tire on like standard, like you would any other tire. Pull it over the valve stem here. You can see, so it's not caught up on there. Especially with a tubeless tire, you want to use, preferably you want to use no tools to get the tire on the rim, because you don't want to crease that bead or whatnot. So I am going to leave an opening. I'm not going to put it all the way on the tire because we're going to put the fluid in there, and then we're going to use an air compressor to pop the tire on. Air compressor is almost required because you need to throw a lot of air into the tire in a hurry. Otherwise, if you use a hand pump, your air is just escaping outside the tire, and you can't get it to seat up. So this is orange brand, or orange seal, I guess is called. It's for this purpose. It's got a little bit of aggregate flakes of almost like glitter in there in case you do get a puncture. That little bit of aggregate will seal up the hole. So I usually measure it. It takes 3-4 ounces. I have measured it, but I've done it enough times to just know what enough is, and I'd rather just use a little more rather than a little less. So that's about 3 or 4 ounces. Just lay it in there, and what I'm going to do is just rotate the tire so that fluid is out of my way as I get the tire fully on the rim. Like I said, no tools is preferable, but usually I don't get away with that. I need to get the irons on there and pull it up on. We'll see. It's just nice to not have to put a tool on there and risk putting a crease or a dent in the bead of the rubber. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to pull that over, so that's okay. I do prefer the metal ones. I've broken my share of plastic ones, and the metal ones have a nice blunt end, so you're not putting much damage on the tire. So I'm just going to try to ease it up over with minimal force. That's going on nicely, and maybe one more. There we go. All right, so That tire is all the way on. And what we're going to do now is, these little adapters come in very handy to convert the Presta to a Schrader, so that I can get an air compressor on there and seat the bead of the tire onto the rim quickly. Once it's seated, it won't come unseated. So the first time, an air compressor is almost required, or at least super handy. All the times after that, you can use a regular hand pump. So the fluid's in there, the tire's on, so we're gonna go out to where I have the air compressor and get it seated up. And sometimes I overinflate it just initially to get it to pop, to get the bead to pop into the rim, into place, and then we'll let some air out to get it to the proper PSI. Okay, we'll see you at that step. Okay, not great lighting, but we're out here with the compressor. And hey, what's that? We'll do some videos on that someday. Little project with that. So I got the compressor up to pressure, and I've just got a standard automotive adapter for the line, and we're gonna inflate it quickly. Otherwise, like I said, with a bike floor pump, you're just gonna blow the air out since the tire's not seated on the rim. So let's see what happens. And that's about it. I can hear it popping into place. We're gonna just now look at run my eye, and you probably can't see that, that's okay. I'm just gonna run my eye around the tire to see if it's uniformly beaded on the rim. There's a little ridge of rubber that it indicates kind of whether it's up fully seated into the rim or not. And I think it is on that side. We'll flip it around. And I'm just running my eye around the tire, and you can see a little, maybe you can see a little sealant. A little sealant came out right there. That's okay. It's just doing its job. And I'm going to put a little more air in there, just for good measure, and then I'm probably going to let some out so we don't get the same problem as before. Okay, yep. So that feels good. Probably too much PSI. Now what I like to do is take the tire and just distribute that sealant. I'll put it on the bike, obviously, and then preferably ride it right away, but at least spin it around and get that sealant distributed uniformly inside the tire. And we're basically done. Usually it's gonna, in the past, I check it the next day and it's down a little bit of pressure as the sealant gets into all the little nooks and crannies, but shortly thereafter it's good to go, and it holds air pretty much as good as a tube does. So that looks like a success, and we'll call it right there. And I gotta still do the front, but it's the same drill, so no need to repeat on camera. So I almost thought I felt something or heard something. We're all good. All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging in with this one, and more bike work, more kitchen videos, some tools and so forth. But you never know what you'll see on Dave's Open Range. So hang with me, and we'll see you next time. All right.